everyone. Those of you who are looking at it right now, and those of you who will be looking at it on the recording and listening in. So we appreciate your time, because I know, as Anthony mentioned a little while ago, we're all Zoom weary. And this is supposed to be our vacation. We all know music teachers don't have vacations, conductors, anyone doing a church job. We don't have vacations. We just have little bits of time off. And so thank you so much, because I know you're all very busy and working with family in addition to your positions. We do honor and love that you care about advocacy, because this is something we all know that is ongoing. It's not a one and done. It's building relationships with those decision makers, constantly telling our stories. And so I'm so grateful for this committee here that constantly keeps us stepping forward, and you just micro steps forward, day by day by day. And also, I want to make sure that we introduce our team. Some of them are not able to be with us right now, but you can see on the screen Anthony Trissick-King, one of our committee members. And Joe Cerruti is not here yet. Hopefully he'll be able to join us. And also Karen Bruno. And then you see Emmy Birch. And she's going to be receiving the baton, because Robyn, Lana, and I have been co-chairing for the past few years. And we are passing the baton on to Emmy. And so also I'll let Emmy introduce the new members when we throw the baton at her in just a few minutes. So as I mentioned with Robyn, she and I have been cohorts and linked arm in arm. And I so have such respect for her historical knowledge and the guidance that she's given me during the time on the committee. So I'm going to pass it on over to Robyn, and then we'll get going with the questions.
Great. Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Lynn Brinckmeyer was a godsend to me when she came in and I was having health issues, and she was on the committee and graciously agreed to take over. And then once I got better, she said, well, let's co-chair. So it's been a joy to work with Lynn and learn from Lynn. And since the committee began, I've had the joy of having Emmy and Anthony and Joe and Karen working with us. And this is just a group of people that work so hard and so creatively for ACDA and the choral field. So though Lynn and I are stepping away, we are in great hands with Emmy. The committee started the same time all of the 7 standing committees started. So aside from Lynn, we were all part of getting it off the ground and kind of creating the vision for what it is. And now Emmy has great vision for the future. And I think that's all I need to say about who we are and what we've done. Some of our work hopefully speaks for itself. And we are thrilled that Emmy is taking over. So Emmy, take it over.
Thanks, ladies. It is such an honor to be stepping in as chair. The co-chairs have done an excellent job of setting up this committee to be prepared to streamline a bunch of resources your direction, whether you are here in the call today or watching this live on the replay. We're going to get into our kickoff to summer Zoom in a second, but I want to introduce you to our committee that's getting ready to take shape starting today. Myself, Anthony Trissick-King, Joe Cerruti, and Dr. Jeffrey Benson, we are so excited to be stepping up as the 2021-22 committee. And so you'll see lots of pictures like that on the social media. One of the biggest ways that we plan to serve you is engaging in social media, whether that's material that we get directly from national office or from other organizations or things that we are creating. The purpose of today was for us to give a huge thank you to Robyn and Lynn, who have given tirelessly hours and ideas and just all these things behind the scene to make sure that ACDA is at the table having the important conversations in both advocacy and collaboration circles. So we wanted to make sure we said thank you to them. But we also wanted to give you a chance, before we dive into full-on summer mode, to think about what does advocacy and collaboration mean to you, and how can you spend your time walking on the beach, sitting by the pool, sitting on the sofa, having a Netflix binge, whatever you're going to do to fill your cup this summer. How can you have little moments or little nuggets to think about so when you come back in the fall, you're inspired and engaged with all the tools you need to advocate and collaborate, whatever that means for you. So that's the plan for the day today. First question I have to everyone in the room, and I will ask you again at the end. This is just to get your nuggets thinking. And if you're watching on Facebook, you can type it in the comment bar below. One of our biggest goals for this coming year is to provide you with advocacy and collaboration courses, like Advocacy 101, Advocacy 201, 301. And the same with collaboration, answering those common questions that we've answered for years thanks to Lynn and Robyn, but then taking them to the next level. We need to know what day of the week and what time would best serve you if we were to offer these courses. So if we were to offer advocacy and collaboration courses, what day and what time? Don't worry about writing the response now. I'll bring it up again, but I've planted the seed and you can think about it. Let's get to the meat of this lunchtime conversation. The purpose of today is to answer your questions and your thoughts and comments on advocacy and collaboration. So, first things first, anyone in the room have any questions about how to advocate, how to collaborate? What is it? I'm doing that dreaded wait time.
I'll just
Thanks,
say,
Lynn.
it's just telling stories. Tell stories, educate others. That's my short answer.
I love that, the tell the story factor. That's what we do as we advocate. Anybody have any specific questions? If not, we're going to dive into the questionnaire. I'm going to give you a little more think time. My dean at the School of Ed says that you should sing Twinkle Twinkle in Your Head to give everybody in the room enough time to think. It's a very long time. We're almost at the end of it. Okay, so you don't have any questions, which is totally fine. You are here for emotional and moral and wonderful support. We did put out a survey. If you haven't taken that survey, I'll make sure to repost it on the Facebook shortly after this replay. But we did a questionnaire for anything that you might need to know about advocacy and collaboration. The two questions we want to focus on today are, I'm looking for assistance in the following areas for advocacy, and I'm looking for assistance in the following areas for collaboration. So the number one comment that we got back from the questionnaire so far is the value of communication. How do we communicate to non-choral folks? How do we communicate to parents, admins, and other individuals, and what do they need to know? So I'm going to toss it out to the panel. How do you communicate in your place?
With parents, a big way for a community choir to advocate, we have them purposely come into a rehearsal, or if we are part of a presentation at a professional conference, we make sure that the parents are there, because then they actually hear, oh, that's all that goes in behind the scenes. It's educating the parents, because they, whether you're in school or in a community organization, they see the end product and they don't have an idea of the process and how you got there. And then when they realize that, they value it so much. So how do you involve your parents into seeing that process?
Robyn, I think that's brilliant. And to piggyback on that, I like to have every one of my rehearsals be open, even to the public, so that people can just come and observe it and watch it. So even beyond the parents. So if you have a community organization, or if you're working at a religious institution, doesn't matter. Just having those rehearsals open to the public is a great way, because there's things that you can't say that is so easily picked up on when you're just there in the environment. Go for it, Lynn.
Annie, one other thing too, because I'm involved so deeply in music education for the public schools, is that even with my youth course, publishing, what we have, the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, there's state standards everywhere you go, and national music standards, but printing those in the program and showing these are the standards that we covered in our learning process, because sometimes they think, oh, they're so talented, they're so pretty, they're so sweet, and they don't realize the academic rigor that's involved. And so sometimes that is helpful to us.
So how do these ideas vary when you're dealing with an adult church or community choir? Because we're all kind of our sweet spot for many of us are children and youth and keeping education going. So I'm throwing that out to my colleagues on the panel.
Yeah, I think even in community and even professional ensembles, you can, even if you don't invite people in, with the power of social media, you could record bits of your rehearsal and get it out there. It's creating a brand and a presence in your community, whether that's local or, and what are some of the things that you currently are doing? And so it's not something that it's not an add-on. It's like, it's easy just to set up, film a little something and put it out there so that people understand that this is a lot goes into it. There's a big process and a lot goes into it. So that's one idea.
Anthony, I love that you said branding and marketing, because we as choral educators and as choral conductors have to borrow a page or a chapter or a textbook from the business world in this regards. Your brand has to be something that is recognizable and translatable to a variety of people. We all come to this from the passion of music, the passion of education, the passion of working with people. And every person you talk to, whether that's an adult choir member, a community member, an admin, a parent, you have to be able to do like they do in sales and immediately assess what is their value criteria. What are they judging value-wise? And how can you translate what your musical love and value is to them? Parents don't necessarily care if their child or their high schooler can sing in tune, accurate rhythms and melodies. However, if you translate the work ethic that you get from working in an ensemble to X, Y, and Z that makes sense to so-and-so's mom, all of a sudden they're seeing the value, communicating the value. Great way to practice this all summer while you're relaxing at said beach or pool or on sofa Netflixing. Why did you download Netflix in the first place? How did Netflix prove to you that they were more valuable? Remember when Netflix used to mail you a DVD in the mail and you had to pay extra to stream and you had to decide if it was worth that extra because you still liked getting the hard DVDs in the mail? How did Netflix communicate their value to you? Look at me connecting it to summer. I made a transfer. Tell Dr. Madsen later. Anything else you guys want to add to the value of communication conversation? This was about 42%, I did the math, of the questions that came in asked about that.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say is don't be bashful. We all, you're at a restaurant, you're at the pool, relaxing, and there are people around you and they talk like, what do you do? I just do this thing, and then you move on. Versus, I actually do this really cool thing. And so we're tooting your own horn and talking about what it is that we do. And I am terrible at this, by the way. So it's something that I have to do I want to do this now? Yeah, I probably should. And so just communicating. But then in that same conversation, asking questions. It's like development. It's like, can you pull all of the things together? Fundraising. Fundraising is making connections and seeing what it is that they're interested in and how does that connect to what it is that you're doing. Advocacy is the same way. You're not raising funds, but you're raising connections. And so, building those relationships it's a two-way street. So be curious about the people around you and see if there's some synergies that you can find.
And then
I love
piggybacking on what Anthony just said, you have to know your elevator speech or at least key points of what is that 30 seconds that you're going to have to sell somebody on your choral program or just choral programs in general. What are you going to tell them that make it valuable to their life and therefore worth supporting, worth sending their kid to your program, worth buying a ticket to a concert? So that elevator speech needs to just kind of be right there on the go.
Excellent ideas, y'all. Last thing to piggyback on both of those, the power of the question. Make another connection. You have a coffee date. You're going on the coffee date. It's going great. You leave and you're so excited to have a second coffee date with that individual. 9 times out of 10, all the research shows that it's because they asked you questions about you. So if all else fails, ask them, when's an opportunity that you have music in your life? Or what did you listen to on your ride on the way over here? Figure out where they are. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It doesn't have to be 100% your responsibility to carry that conversation and to build the value. You have to instill the desire for them to find the value and make that connection. So value, asking the questions. Y'all ready to move on to the next one?
That?
Oh yeah, go girl.
In a conference that I just attended a few weeks ago with another choral organization that specifies in advocacy and whatnot. One of the things that was really drilled in one of the sessions was when you are telling your story for funders, for support, for whatever, make sure that you end with the topic of the story, the thing that grabs the heart, the thing that grabs attention, don't end with talking about yourself or your organization. So if you're asking for money to support your organization, don't say, so we really need this money, but we end with what grabs the heartstrings. And honestly, that was kind of light bulbs went off and I went, yeah, we need to be really aware of how to do that. And it looks like Lynn's about to unmute and piggyback on that. I saw her reach forward.
Can you tell? Because Robyn, you sparked something inside of me when you were saying that too, because you asked about the adults and all these conversations and questions. I mean, the adults in our church choirs, in our community choirs, absolutely asking them the same questions. And why are they in the choir and because they're there for a reason. Everyone's really busy and you spend extra hours for rehearsal. So I just got real fired up when you were talking about that. So I'll try to be a little more subtle next time instead of, it's my turn.
That's perfect. That's the energy that's required to make the value of communication happen. And look at all these different directions and different ways we've hopped on it. It's a perfect segue into our next most asked question on the questionnaire/survey, recruitment. But before we just say the word recruitment, I would like to make a lot of transfers here. In the collegiate world, I'm on a committee called RPG, Retention, Progression, and Graduation. That took me about 3 months to get in the right order. Retain them, progress them through the whole trajectory of their degree program, and graduate them. It's harder than you think sometimes, but RPG. I think that every organization, not just academia, would benefit from thinking about RPG. But I would think of it in choir world more like recruit them, progress them, and graduate them into the next musical experience. So I want to throw RPG at you. What are you doing to recruit, to keep them there, to progress them through your program, and to make sure that when they leave, they're so passionate about music that they might not sing in choir, but they're definitely putting their person in musical experiences?
Sorry, I just like blowing up the chat.
If you can't read the chat, it totally worth it to come to one of these events live just to see ATK's amazing chat skills.
Yeah, you down with RPG? Yeah, you know me.
Great. Now I'm never going to be able to say that again without saying that. You down with RPG? You know me. Okay, so tell me, what are you guys doing to recruit or to keep people in your choirs and your ensembles?
Man, isn't it similar to what we do to advocate out in the world? It's just you're advocating to people and just it's the same message. Like, this is what we're doing and we're excited and we just love to have you be a part of it. And people can be a part of it in lots of different ways. And some of it is to actually be a singer, and some of it's going to be a donor, some of it's going to be whatever. But I find that what Robyn was saying, elevator pitch, it's basically the same to whether it's a new student, new singer, a parent, a government official. It doesn't matter, because if it's exciting if you're really into what you're doing and you're excited about it and you're willing to share it, then it's going to have some pull to a multitude of people. I mean, that's the idea of the elevator pitch, is that it actually will attract a lot of different people. And of course, you do change it and you tease out some things that are specific to the ways in which the person in front of you is going to engage. But the other thing I would say is some of your best people and your best advocates are the choir members themselves. And what are ways that you can support them in doing the recruiting? We're all coming off of this pandemic, and whether it's actually coming off the pandemic or the pandemic's going to come back, who knows? But at some point, we're going to be spending a lot of time rebuilding programs, because there's been a lot of attrition. And those who have stuck by you, it's how can you leverage them, and it's in addition to yourself, to be able to do it. And to give you something explicit about this, at Hart, I'm going into my first year at Hart, at the University of Hartford, was in a pandemic, and I don't even count it. And so there has been attrition, and so it's like starting from scratch. So the first thing I did is I created a branding committee last year to create a choral brand that was student-led, and they did all the work and I advised. Now I've created a recruitment committee in which all the ideas are theirs, and I'm trying to support them in doing the recruiting. Because I can get up and say blah, 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 but they're integrated on campus in a way that I can't be, because I was not able to during the pandemic. So it's just leveraging the people around you to help with recruiting. Okay, I'm going to be.
I love that through that you hit all of them though. Like you talked about recruitment. Sorry, Robyn, I'll toss it to you in a second. But then they progress through and they retain. They don't go anywhere because you've given them leadership and they're invested. And because they're invested, they're going to get all the way to the end and remember these life skills you've taught them to brand, to recruit. We spend time talking about open-ended questions. We go to a really fancy dinner with a bunch of middle school girls. There's no devices allowed at the table after we take the initial selfie and all the food pictures. And then they have to only ask guiding questions, no yes or no questions. It's so hard. They come to the table with a list just because they can't make it up so fast. Robyn, what were you going to say?
Well, both of you are brilliant. I was going to say just about Anthony, but now piggybacking on that. The thing that I just want to point out that we all need to hear is that both of you are talking about empowering your singers, your students, your members. It's not always about us telling the message. It's about empowering those that believe in what we do and participate in it and helping them find a path to do that and with confidence. So I just, both of you are brilliant. I'm shutting up again.
I'm jumping in. So, then Laura, I'll pass it over to you. How's that? I just want to say that building relationships with our students that are in our ensembles, our singers, regardless of what age they are, knowing if they're having trouble with a parent that is ill, or if they've got something going on, just it's difficult with so many students or so many singers in your ensemble, still finding out something personal about them and knowing that you care about them beyond that you're in my choir. What about your life? That I think that also adds to it, and it takes time, but it's very important in my view. Laura, I'll pass it to you. How's that?
Well, I was just going to say that even like expressing gratitude for the little things that they're doing to support the program. I found myself writing a lot of emails to parents and to students. Like if somebody, contacts me and they happen to drop a student's name, oh, I heard about blah, blah, blah. So, Lily Kate told me about this at school. Well, Lily Kate got an email from me that night in which I not only thanked her for talking about the program with her friends and told her that it was successful and that one of her friends is going to join, but also copied her mom and then said, here's another thing. You're welcome to invite them to come to this other thing that we're doing, and like kind of just open the door where she may not have even thought that that little conversation she had was going to lead to anything. So just recognizing and showing gratitude for what they're doing. And I found myself doing that with a lot of families towards the end of the season and into the summer this year.
That story is beautiful, Laura. We'll have to share that as one of our stories. What a beautiful thing. There's so much good research, too, in the power of brain and mind and connection related to gratitude and actually speaking the gratitude. That is something that we need to be teaching all of the people in front of us and practicing ourselves, because that's another big thing we have to think about. We have been in this year and a half of crazy, and the burnout is real, as we see by all of the Zoom out that we've had. How are we going to come back to the start line this fall and not empty our cups immediately? We have a whole nother year of somewhat uncertain certainties. So yes, more gratitude. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Laura. Any final thoughts on question number 2 about recruitment, progression, retention, graduation? All right, this is totally related, but we had 25% of the people mention something about funding in their question. So with programs that are smaller, we've lost a lot of people, attrition. What are your thoughts on funding? Who's going first?
I just scored a free rehearsal space. Oh, but also maybe I should say that I did it by selling our program as part of the community to an organization that was interested in the community. So that goes back to elevator pitch and branding, right?
Yes,
and that
good.
goes to the collaboration part of what our committee is. So it's very important part of what we do, finding pathways to collaboration.
Oh, fundraising. I'll sound like a broken record. It's the same. Yeah, but I do find it, because in fundraising, it's asking questions It's what Laura did is she found she leveraged that connection to get a free rehearsal space. And so why is it that somebody who's in front of you, why would they be interested in your program? Not why your program is good for them. Why would they perhaps be interested in your program? And that just requires you to ask tons of questions. When I'm on fundraising outings, and doing some cultivations and so on, I'm not talking about my program a lot. It's more me just asking questions, and then you find the hook, and then you start talking. It's like this is what you're really interested in. Like this jazzes you. Okay, here's how. But if there's not a connection, don't force it either. Like if they have nothing to do, it's not going to work. And just be like, this is awesome. Thank you for your time, and move on. The other thing is, don't be afraid to ask. If a fundraiser somebody taught me this years ago. If somebody said yes to meeting with you, and let's say they're a funder, they're expecting you to ask for something. And it would actually be doing a disservice not to ask for something. So just knowing that just frees you, going, okay, I need to ask for something. I'm here. They're expecting it, so I better ask for something. And again, it's not always money. Sometimes it's if there's not a connection, it's like, well, who do they know? Now that I know what you're interested in, and you might not be interested, and now you know what we're about, do you know somebody who would be interested in being it? So fundraising is a complicated, ongoing thing. The last thing I'll say is meet with, there are professionals out there who do this every day. Meet with them and ask them questions on how they do what they do, because we're not trained in fundraising. We're just not. So asking other people who actually are will help you kind of up level your skill.
You keep tossing me the ball so perfectly. Like, this is the second time it was like, here, let me lob that up to you. I might actually hit it with my, tennis racket. That is the best way. That when I thought about funding, I thought, okay, summer, what can I do sitting by? Obviously, I'm thinking about the ocean all the time. What can I do on the beach? Well, there's tons of LinkedIn learning things that you can jump in there. Tons of free LinkedIn learning classes. There's a ton of YouTubes on what do you need to even ask for and what are the basics of it. So take a QuickBook training, figure out how the accounting side works of your organization, of your choir. Even if it doesn't directly apply to you, thinking in those new pathways is incredible. Like Anthony said, sitting down with someone who does this as a career. I had lunch with a financial planner, not because I needed him personally, but I wanted to toss out ideas as a choir. And the questions that they asked me and the people they put me in contact with next have totally changed some of the things we've looked at going forward, including some of the collaborations we've started designing that have nothing to do with music. So it is such a great time while you are on an airplane, driving across the country, sitting on your sofa watching Netflix, whatever you're doing, between when the next one's about to play, think about what you can do to increase shopping for dresses. Thinking about what that Anthony and the chat bar, if you guys are not watching this live, Anthony's chat bar is amazing. Thinking about what you can do. Oh, Robyn, that was you. What you can do to find those connections and build the knowledge. So funding starts from the ask, but it also has to have some back knowledge to it as well. Hey, Joe, we're so glad you're here.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
You're totally fine. We've been talking about the value of communication. We've been talking about recruitment, retention, progression, graduation, and now we are on the amazing task of funding. Is there anything else you guys want to add to that?
I'd like to say too that sometimes when you ask for a donation or that in-kind services like the rehearsal space Laura was talking about, that's still funding, and it will even printing your programs or putting an ad in things. That those things are still successful fundraising in my view. And I'll just give you one more little story about my 8-year-old grandson, because he was selling chocolates and he wanted to be the winner in his school. And my one of the people in our family happens to be a used car salesman, and he's one of the classy ones. And he says, instead of saying, do you want to buy something, you say, how many would you like to buy? How much would you like to donate? How would you like to support? What is your financial support that you would like to give this time? Just changing that question instead of would you, how much would you like to? It has changed. And by the way, he did win, but that has helped me too. That more people, oh, okay, well, I can do this. Absolutely. I mean, just like when you go to Walgreens, would you like to donate $1 to the Red Nose Fund? Of course I do. That type of thing. So, okay, that's all.
I love reframing the question. Go, Robyn.
Piggybacking on Lynn and going back a little bit to the recruiting retention. That's based on Angie Johnson with Young Naperville Singers. We have switched are you planning on returning to our program to you are coming back to this choir? We don't ask, we just assume they're coming back. And I really think that's helping with retention. Maybe it just sends the message that I'm not sure if I want you to, we want you, you're valued. So that little subliminal message even makes a difference. So
I love that, Robyn. That's a great idea. Do you frame it as, please just let us know if you're not? Like you're registered for next year. Let us know if you're withdrawing. Like, how do you frame that?
We don't even mention withdrawing. we just assign them to the choir, and they have to get on and communicate and send in their deposit or something. And if that doesn't show up, then we get on the phone, because some people just can't, and so we follow up that way.
Is this like you have to quit the gym? Like, I remember that episode on Friends where like, I can't quit the gym and I can't quit the bank. And so you make it impossible for them to quit your choir.
Make your tuition a automatic deposit.
Yeah, thanks.
No.
Don't laugh, I did that. It works magic. It's a magical thing. I'm not kidding. We did it this year, and the hard part was getting them all turned off before summer hit. I only had to refund like 3 people. Everyone else followed the directions. But it really did work exceptionally well. Some parents really loved it because it felt more like a gym membership. But way to make that friends transfer. Anything else that you guys want to put in the conversation about recruitment or funding? There's one final question. All right. I'm going to change these questions. Instead of saying, here's the question, I'm going to pretend that none of these statements I'm about to say are my actual beliefs. I can't collaborate because I can't make time for it. Thoughts from the panel?
That's dumb.
Straight to the point. Why? Let's give some whys behind it.
We did a collaboration this year and it took just as much time, maybe like I don't know, a handful more for me to get the other choirs to like pay their check at the end. But it took just as much time to put the whole thing together in the end as it would have for me to do it for myself, just for my choir. And it was way cooler.
There's my favorite thing is there's a difference between collaboration and coordination, and true collaborations require trust. And I do get how some people will say, I don't have time for it because they don't have time to build a relationship to create the trust, but they're willing to collaborate on something. And Stephen Covey, to talk about what Emmy said earlier, is going to other outside sources. I read a lot of things that are outside of music. He's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective, whatever it is. And he says in there very, very clearly, look, without trust, you're just coordinating. And trust is what leads to true collaborations. So creating really good collaborations, it takes time to build those relationships. But Laura is right. It's dumb to say you don't have time to build relationships, because we're social beings. That's what we do all the time, is just building a relationship with your organization, at that level versus a personal level.
A book that goes along really well, there's like a whole series of books that goes along with Stephen Covey, but a great book if you're worried about not having time is Deep Work by Cal Newton. And it talks about the power of maneuvering your schedule and making it work in your favor. You don't need to come up with a whole free day to figure out the collaboration, but it is amazing what you can write in little nuggets a day. I know Morgan just finished reading How to Write Your Dissertation in 15 Minutes a Day. I mean, you literally need more than 15 minutes a day, but the concept is you can carve out those little bitty times. It's a DNA question. Is collaborating in the DNA of your organization and your teaching practices? Because if so, make time, because it'll be so much worth it. Devil's advocate. I cannot do collaborations because I can't get everyone to commit.
Be more persuasive.
Take the people who do want to commit and run with it, and then the other people want to do it next time.
I think a lot of choral arts organizations get in a routine and like to be creatures of habit. We do a fall season, we do a spring season, we do a holiday season. How am I going to fit something in between those things? I don't have time. I don't have, even getting our singers to commit to something in between those things, if it's not learning their music, is additional. So it's really about explaining the why behind all of that, making sure that everyone understands why is it that we're taking extra time out of what we have already established as our routine to do these sorts of things.
Joe so perfectly connected back to our communicating the value statement that we started everything with. Awesome. Thanks. Lynn, what are you going to say?
I was also going to say, rather than having someone in that conversation, then asking them, well, what can you do? Or what is your idea of collaboration? Because it might be this huge, I've got to have a full orchestra, I've got to have 180 people on the stage, on the risers. And when maybe collaboration is you sing one song with another ensemble at the end of the performance, you both do your individual performances and you sing one collaborative song together. What can you do rather than what I can't do? And asking that question sometimes can be a little more productive.
Y'all ready for the final double advocate question about collaboration? There is no one to collaborate with in my community. How am I doing with the devil's advocate thing? Like I practiced these.
You got to think outside the box. Don't just look at the obvious choices to collaborate, especially if you're in a small area. And you're looking at what your colleagues do in the city that's 50 miles away, and there's tons of collaboration with arts. Look beyond that. Look deeper in what you can do for the community to enhance the community and partner with other organizations that are non-arts.
You can also look, especially now that we have established being on Zoom, you can look in other countries or around the country, other countries. We did a collaboration with the organization in Singapore, simultaneously with Hong Kong and South Africa. I mean, it was every continent except for Antarctica the last summer. It was an awesome collaborative event. Like, it was awesome. So yeah, why limit yourself to, as Robyn was saying, the obvious choices?
We've learned all these skills, we might as well use them. I mean, we've learned how to maneuver Zoom, we've learned how to make all sorts of audio tracks. But I love that. Look outside of not just your city and your community, but outside of our country. We just set up a collaboration for this fall with memory care facilities in town. My big goal for the year is inspiration. That's the word I want them all to walk away with. And so we took the idea that Evan Powers and the Orlando area used, the Orange County School District, they used this idea where you get a small group of your students and you train them for 4 to 6 weeks. There's empathy training. There's you learn a bunch of songs from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. You learn how to read nonverbal skills. You learn about the power of music therapy and the power of communication. And then they go into an assisted living home with memory care, and they work in partners with a resident and build a playlist for them with music that makes them feel nostalgic, makes them come alive. And so the students are learning the empathy and the skills and the power to communicate and to feel. And the thing I'm most excited about is the training that the people we're partnering with are bringing. I don't have to pay for anything because they're giving us the training. They're setting up all of there's zero money out of pocket. And time-wise, there were 2 30-minute meetings, and it's off and rolling. And it's going to impact every student in my ensemble and become such a recruitment tool. But they get to do this thing where they put on gloves that make you feel like you have arthritis, and goggles that make you feel like you have cataracts, and these like slipper things that make you feel like you have neuropathy. And they wear this like weighted thing it's so cool. Like, I'm really excited to see what happens when an 11-year-old figures out what life is like when you're 84. It has nothing to do with music. I mean, music's kind of there eventually, but it's way down the line of importance. It's the empathy that they can then bring back to choir. And how much better will their singing be when they're communicating from that place of experience?
I think that's huge. And it also does deal with the music in the fact that, a lot of people look at like kids singing in choir and they're like, Okay, so they do that for a little while. No, it's a lifelong thing. And your appreciation for music then transfers to being able to work with someone on their appreciation for music and widening the scope that, just because I'm singing choir music right now doesn't mean that I'm not also developing appreciation for all sorts of other music for the rest of my life.
That's beautiful. It all goes into our story. Do you guys feel like you have things to think about while you're sitting by the beach at the pool on your sofa watching Netflix? If you are here live, we can't thank you enough for giving your lunch hour to us on this 1st of July. Another huge thank you to Robyn and Lynn for your amazing leadership getting us to this point. Thank you to the committee members who were able to give on this panel. And if you're watching this on the replay, we also love and respect everything you're doing, and we are here for you. The last thing I'll ask you to do is to let us know what your best day of the week and time would be when we offer our advocacy and collaboration courses. We want to be a resource for you. Of course, they'll be available on replay, but if you can take a second and give us in the chat bar or put in the comments of this replay, what day or time is your best time and how else can we serve you? We're always here for you. We're one Facebook message or email away, ACDA advocacy and collaboration @gmail.com. Or I think everyone got my email address if you signed up for this Zoom. Don't be strangers. Anything else before we sign off? Happy summering!